GMAT all day!
This last video in our overlapping set series is a bonus video. We will be talking about 3-variable overlapping sets. So all of the overlapping set problems we've done up until this point have been 2-variable overlapping sets. So questions where we have been talking about things like the number of kids in French class and Spanish class. But if we were talking about the number of kids in French class, Spanish class, and German class, well, then we would have a 3-variable overlapping set. So the thing that I like about 2-variable overlapping sets is how predictable they are. Once I see that I have a 2-variable overlapping set question, my approach is always going to be the same. I'm going to set up my table, my matrix, and that will do a good chunk of the heavy lifting for me. So the bad thing about 3-variable overlapping sets is you can't use that table, or you'd have to make like some sort of 2x2x2 or some sort of 3D table. Now, the good thing about 3-variable overlapping sets, though, is I think the way to approach these ones is almost even more predictable than the 2-variable overlapping sets. 3-variable overlapping sets, they are about as close as you're going to come to simple plug and chug on the GMAT. Now, the real most important thing to keep in mind with them, though, is that they are not super common. You are almost certainly going to see a 2-variable overlapping set question on your test. Most likely, you will see more than one 2-variable overlapping set. You will see at most one 3-variable overlapping set. So perhaps the biggest takeaway from this video is if you end up liking 3-variable overlapping sets, don't then go making a 2-variable overlapping set question into a 3-variable overlapping set questions. Most overlapping set questions are 2 variables. So the way to approach, or I should say the way to think about 3-variable overlapping set questions is with a Venn diagram. And now if you understand how the Venn diagram works, you shouldn't actually have to draw one on your actual test. We will walk through it here so that you don't have to actually make one and take up all that space. So this question here says a survey of 365 people asked them to select all flavors of pie they enjoy from 3 options: apple, blueberry, and cherry. The survey results show that in total, 250 people enjoyed apple, 150 enjoyed blueberry, and 90 enjoyed cherry. If 60 people selected 2 of the flavors and 5 people selected none of the flavors, how many respondents said they enjoy all 3 flavors of pie? So in our 3-variable overlapping set here, our 3 variables are our pie flavors: apple, blueberry, and cherry, and each of those is represented by one of the rings in our Venn diagram. So we'll say this is apple, our orange ring is cherry, like our blueberry. Now, so the way I actually solve 3-variable overlapping set questions is with an equation. Now, this is not an equation you should have to memorize. If you understand the equation, and especially how it relates to the Venn diagram, it should not be memorization. You should be able to derive it on the spot logically. And so I will first spot you the equation, and then we will walk through it. But again, if it seems like a complicated equation, it'll be hard to memorize. It shouldn't be the case as long as you understand it. And so the equation is this, and I'll put the equation in terms of our scenario here. So we got total survey respondents, and that should be equal to our total pie selections minus 2 times our people who chose all 3 pies minus our people who chose 2 pies plus our people who chose no pies. So now let's talk about where this formula came from. So it looks like we got, 5 variables in our formula. That makes it look more complicated, though, than it actually is, because this is the thing I like about 3-variable overlapping sets, is that the scenarios that they give you, they almost always are going to give you 4 of these variables, meaning the variable that is left over is just the thing they're then going to be asking you to solve for. And so that is what I mean when I say these 3-variable overlapping sets are about as close as you're going to get to simple plug and chug, as long as you understand this formula. So where does this formula come from? So if we're looking for our total survey respondents, the number of people who responded to our survey, well, we can start by counting up our total pie selections. And so that would be all the people who chose apple, all the people who chose cherry, all the people that chose blueberry. In other words, that is the sum of our 3 rings. So why aren't these 2 things equal to each other? Well, the reason is that people could have selected multiple pie flavors, and therefore we double counted a bunch of our respondents. For example, this sector here, we counted that sector here all 3 times when we added up our rings. Now, how many times did we want to count this middle sector here? We still want to count it once. Therefore, how many times do we have to take it out when we're trying to find our total survey respondents? Well, if we want to count it once and we counted it 3 times, we got to take it out twice. What about the people who chose 2 of the pie flavors? That would be that sector there, this one here, or this one here. Well, each of these guys, they got counted twice. Now, just like the people who chose all 3, we still want to count these guys once. Therefore, we have to take them out once. And that is why there's no variable or no coefficient in front of this variable. Now, what about the people out here? So these are the people who did not select any of these three pie flavors. Now, these people did not get counted when we summed up our three rings. Therefore, if we're looking for our total survey respondents, so far they have not been included in our count. So that's why you have to add them back in. Now, I would say in 50% of the three variable overlapping set questions, this number here is equal to 0. That is not true with two variable overlapping sets. So if we go back to our example of a French and Spanish class, where French, no French, Spanish, no Spanish. More often than not, in a two variable overlapping set, this box here, no French, no Spanish, will have people in it. But that is not always the case with three variable overlapping sets. Like I said, about half the time, that number will be equal to 0. So now that we understand this formula, let's just go back to our question and fill in our variables that they give us. So a survey of 365 people. So what is that? That is our total survey respondents. That's the left side of our equation. Is equal to our, let's keep reading the question. So we got three flavors, apple, blueberry, cherry. The survey results showed that in total, 250 people enjoyed apple, 150 enjoyed blueberry, 90 enjoyed cherry. So what is that? So those are our three rings, right? So if we sum those up, those should be our total pie selections. So what is the sum of those three things? 250 plus 150 is 400, plus 90 is 490. And this should almost always be the case, right? This number here should be greater than this number here. And then because this number includes people who we double counted, we're just taking out, we're just subtracting from this number. If 60 people selected two of the flavors, so that's this guy here, and 5 people selected none, so that's this guy here, meaning this guy here should be the thing they're asking us for. How many respondents said they enjoyed all three flavors? Indeed, that is the case. So game over here, I just got to plug in and then not make a math mistake. So 365 is equal to 490 minus 2x, we can say, minus, so our people who chose 2 is 60. Usually they give this number as an aggregate. So they could have broken it up and said, this is 40, this is 15, and this guy here is 5, in which case you would just have to subtract each of these one time. But usually, as in this case, they just give it as an aggregate, which is even easier. So minus 60, and then how many people? 5. Selected none. So those are the people who never got counted in this number here, so we got to add them in. And now, let's just do some arithmetic. So 365 is equal to 495 minus 60 plus 5, so that's 435 minus 2x. So 2x is equal to 435 minus 365. What's that? 35 plus 35, 70. So 2x is equal to 70. Therefore, x, or our people who chose all three of the pie flavors, is equal to 70 over 2, 35 people. C. So those are three variable level sets. Remember, they are not super common, but if they do show up, if you can do one or two of them, you should be able to do pretty much all of them. So I like these. On to the next set of videos.